Wednesday speaker event this evening. First, I want to thank everyone in the room who was able to attend live and in person for this opportunity, but we also have a lot of people online. And should you not be able to come in person at a future month, check out the live stream for every first Wednesday, excluding ones that involve film. Tonight, we are able to be here because of some generous sponsors. Those include the Courtyard by Marriott Long Beach Downtown Hotel, Stephen and Brenda Olson, the Osborne and Rourke Charitable Trust, and the Friends of the Elephant Seal Bureau. We also are joined tonight by some special guests. As you might be involved with or heard on the news, our region has been experiencing a little bit of a traumatic event in the ocean, a domoic acid event that has caused many of the elephant seals we'll be talking about tonight, sea lions, and other marine mammals to have some problems. We have a great team of folks in our region and other places that respond to these events and nurse these marine mammals back to health. I'd invite anybody who participated or financially supports these events to stand up. And more specifically, I'd like to acknowledge some aquarium staff who participated, our colleagues at the Marine Mammal Care Center, the Marine Animal Rescue, the Denver Zoo, the Georgia Aquarium, and all of the volunteers who've participated in Pinniped Patrol. I don't see anybody standing. I know that you're in here. Please stand up so we can give you acknowledgement. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for our animals out there. Unfortunately, I have a little change to our program. Our invited guest speaker, Tim Bridwell, was supposed to be here tonight. It might have been the reason you signed up. However, he has fallen ill. And so in his place, we have another fantastic speaker who can also talk to you about elephant seals and is from the same organization. So we want to thank Max Fowles, who's joining us tonight in Tim's place, and say hello to Tim, who we believe is online watching tonight. Now, who is Max? Max is a California native who holds degrees in psychology, teaching, and counseling. She spent most of her career in education, teaching grades 2 through 8, as well as a middle school counselor. After she retired, she was lucky enough to spend 7 years living in Cambria, which is located in the central coast of California. She loved marine mammals her whole life, and this opportunity, this new location, allowed her to be a docent with the Friends of the Elephant Seal in San Simeon. She loved the training and the mentoring that was offered to her through that participation and is excited now to be part of their mission in educating others about what they do, about these remarkable pinnipeds, and encouraging everyone to be stewards of the ocean, much like the stewardship we espouse here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Max is a past member of the board of directors and coordinator for school group programs for the Friends of the Elephant Seal. And her favorite activity is traveling to different parts of the world seeking out marine mammals in their natural habitats, perhaps like many of you. Max will be telling us about the 4 seasons of elephant seals tonight. Following her presentation, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A, so raise your hands at the end of the presentation to get the attention of one of our volunteers with a mic. And then, as you're all likely familiar, we will have a cocktail reception after the Q&A, where you have the opportunity to purchase a beverage, create a craft, talk with somebody you're sitting next to that you don't know, or somebody that you do, and just share conversations. So with that, I would remind you to silence your cell phones so we can really focus on what Max is saying, and let's give Max a round of applause.
Good evening. Thank you, Jenny and Adina. Thank you so much for all of your help, and thanks to the Aquarium of the Pacific for having us here tonight. I'm super excited to talk to you a little bit about elephant seals and specifically what you might see at different times of the year at the rookery. But to start with, I'd like to just give a little bit of an overview. Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, so elephant seals are part of the pinniped family. And pinnipeds include the true seals, like elephant seals and harbor seals, which are also earless seals, as well as eared seals, like sea lions and fur seals, and walruses. So Elephant seals are sexually dimorphic, and what that means is animals that one gender is significantly larger than the other. In this case, the males are significantly larger than the females. As you can see in that bottom right-hand picture, the male is on the furthest away, and he's significantly larger than the female in the middle, and that is a pup that's with her in the front. Males can get to be 16 feet long and 5,000 pounds. Females up to 12 feet and 1,800 pounds. So even though they are much smaller than the males, that's still a significantly large seal. So longevity is different as well. The males live to be about 14 years old. Females live into their 20s. And they have a pretty rough life. The first year, we lose about 50% of our pups. On their migration. So 50% are survivors. We get very happy when we see them come back to the rookery, kind of do a little happy dance. 2 of 3 males will survive each year after, and 6 of 7 females will survive each year after. So the males do have it a lot tougher than the females, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. So elephant seals were almost hunted to extinction back in the late 1800s. They were hunted for their blubber. Their blubber was coveted because it burns very cleanly. So back when oil was used for lamps and such, it was a good oil to use. They were also very easy kills. When they're on land, as you'll see in some of the pictures and videos, they do a lot of sleeping, so it's a pretty easy hunt. The Mexican government recognized that off of Guadalupe Island, off the coast of Baja California, that there were less than 100 seals. Some people think there may have been only about 35 seals left. And the government in 1892 sent guards out to the island to protect those seals. So the reason we still have northern elephant seals today is thanks to the Mexican government. We now, in our rookery alone, have about 25,000 seals. Not all there at the same time, but within a year, about 25,000 seals. And it's thought that there are about 250,000 seals worldwide. So this is our rookery. It spans about 8 miles, starting from around Hearst Castle. So if you're familiar with the Central Coast, Hearst Castle is it's in San Luis Obispo County. The rookery goes up to about what we consider the beginning of the Big Sur coastline, so it's a very beautiful area. And if you look at the middle of the picture, that bay, that's where the main part of the rookery is. So the majority of the seals will haul out twice a year. Every seal comes twice a year, and that's the location where most of them will be. However, the 8 miles, there's other little coves that we will also often find elephant seals. So this is the rookery. Very busy day for people, not as busy a day for the seals, although you can still see there's a significant number of seals on the beach. Beautiful sunny day up at the rookery. It's just an awesome thing that you can have people this close to wild animals and not disturb them. It's critical that when these seals are on the beach that they not be disturbed. They are fasting when they're on the beach, so they really do need to reserve as much energy as possible. So the seals started to arrive on the Central Coast in around 1990. And by 1997, you can see that there were about 5,000 seals showing up throughout the year. And that's when the Friends of the Elephant Seal became an organization. We're a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to educate people about these seals in order to help them thrive and for people to be safe around them. The problem before 1997, there were a lot of people going down on the beach and getting really close to these seals. And again, they didn't understand the importance of letting the seals rest, the fact that they're going to be fasting, some for up to 3+ months at a time. And so we were there to educate and teach people, and then, of course, the boardwalks were built and the fencing, and that helps a lot as well. You can see that we are now at the point where about 5,000 pups are born every year in the rookery. And again, like I said earlier, about 25,000 seals total in our rookery. So now to talk about the seasons. This is a general overview of what the seasons look like. You can see that in May, that's when we have the most number of seals on the beach. In August would be probably the least number of seals, although it's still a pretty fun time of year because it's the big adult bulls. There is a lot of overlap within the seasons. Sometimes seals show up when we don't think they should be there. We talk about them not getting the memo, but the reality is they do just fine. They're kind of just marching to their own drummer, I guess. But here we basically have 3 seasons: birthing and breeding, molting, and the fall haul out. And within those seasons, there are some subseasons. So this is what our focus will be tonight, to talk a little bit more about what you might see different times of the year at the rookery. So this is the birthing and breeding season well underway, probably around January. But the birthing and breeding season actually begins unofficially the end of November, officially December. And I say unofficially because we often have some of the adult males coming ashore a little bit earlier in November, hoping to claim their territory. The goal of the males, and they're the first to arrive during birthing and breeding, is to claim a piece of property, because that piece of property, then if they can maintain that control, when the females arrive, that females that arrive to that piece of beach become part of their harem. A male elephant seal, alpha male that has acquired a harem, could have up to 20 to 50 females in their harem. You can see here there's pups already on the beach, the little black guys. The only seals that are black are the pups. Their natal coat is black. And in the middle, there's a bull. He's not the biggest of bulls, but he obviously got alpha status, so good for him. He's in the middle there, and there's females and pups around him. He will protect those females, and we'll see some examples of that later on. So again, the males come first. We know this is a male. It's pretty simple to see that he has that big nose. It's called a proboscis. And he has a chest shield, that keratinized skin that you see that's kind of pinkish. Now, we can age a seal based on the length of their proboscis, as well as if they have that notch in their nose, and also the height of the chest shield. If it comes up above their eye level, like a necklace, then they are considered a full adult. And that would be at about 8 years when males become full adults. So they arrive first. And like I said, their goal is to go ahead and claim some territory so that when the females arrive, they can have mating rights. The first thing they will do in trying to control a piece of property is to ward off other seals, and they'll do it with their voices. The first thing is vocalizing, and if a seal has fought with another seal, he learns his voice, and if he lost, he's not going to approach him and try to challenge him again. He'll go down the beach and try with somebody else perhaps, but not the seal that he's already lost to. So the vocalizations can often ward off any competitors. If that doesn't work, the next thing they do is they chase. That often is all it takes as well, but if that also doesn't work, then we have battles. And the battles can get pretty intense, but oftentimes they're not that big of a deal either. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of that. So that's called galumping. They don't move so gracefully on land, much better in the water, but they move a lot faster than you would think, because in a short distance, they could outrun us on the sand. But this guy, so he vocalized, and the other one backed off, but he chased anyway. So for some reason, he felt the need to make a point. And then when he came further down the beach, there were other males, younger males, you could tell they were not quite as large, that also scattered the second he came by. So clearly he was well known. They heard his voice when he was vocalizing to the first guy. And he made his way in to prove a point for whatever reason. So he's pretty proud of himself. That was a much younger seal that he scared away, so he's got bragging rights for a minute. But the seal that did finally back off didn't immediately run away when he started the chase, and that's why it became a little tussle. This is what most of the fighting looks like. It's not a lot, usually one, especially if they're unmatched seals like these two. But if you have some evenly matched seals, two 10-year-old adult males, the fighting can go on for up to half an hour, maybe even longer, and they do get bloody. The good news is that one will usually back off before there's any kind of life-threatening injuries, so that's the good news. So this guy is an example of one that definitely battled a lot longer than the two we just saw. He may have been the victor, he may have been the loser, hard to know, because both will end up having some scars and some injuries. If he was the victor, he's probably protecting his property still. So if another seal comes in to challenge him, he will have to fight again. If he was the loser, he's probably going to spend a day or two nursing his wounds and then might move down the beach and try to come in on another seal's property. After the males have established their alpha status in their territory, the females start to arrive. Like I said earlier, they become part of a harem, and they arrive pregnant. So within a few days of their arrival, they will give birth. If you're lucky enough to be at the rookery and see a live birth, it's pretty amazing. I happen to be lucky enough one very early morning, and so you're going to get the benefit of that right now. So that's pretty incredible, isn't it? I saw this female arching her back a little bit. I saw what I thought were baby contractions, so I stuck with her for a bit and was rewarded with a very healthy live birth. This pup was born head first. Pups can also be born flipper first, and either way seems to be natural for them, not a problem, unlike us with a breech baby. The mom, once that pup was born, immediately starts vocalizing. And it's super important for the seals to know, the pups to know their mom's voice. And I don't know if you could hear, it was faint, but towards the end, that pup was also vocalizing to mom. So she has the opportunity then to learn her pup's voice. The rookery gets really crowded, and if they were to get separated, that would be very, very problematic for the pup. It needs to be nursing, and if he doesn't find mom, he would not survive. Now the birds are our cleanup crew. And if you noticed, they were going right after the afterbirth and keeps the beach nice and clean, so we like that. The moms don't like it so much, though, when the birds get near their pups. And so if you noticed, at one point, they gave her another opportunity to do a little more vocalizing. we go. So this is a brand new born pup. I always say they look like little aliens. They're pretty cute. You can see the umbilical cord still attached. You can see a little bit of blood still on the head. And they have that black natal coat. One of the things that I find most remarkable about elephant seals is actually their front flippers. And if you look at his, it looks like it's in a fist, and there are knuckles. If you count, there are 5 digits just like ours, like our hands. So they don't have an opposable thumb, but they do have fingers, in a sense, that move in the same way that ours do. And later on, you'll see an example of a seal flipping sand. They cup their front flippers in the same way we would cup our hands in order to flip that sand. I don't know if you noticed that on the video, the pup was scratching pretty quick after his birth. And again, they have fingernails, so he just had a really good scratch going on there. So nursing is a lot of work. The first thing they have to do is yell at mom to roll over. Then they have to find the nipples, which isn't always easy. And you saw on these females, they've got a bunch of cookie cutter shark bites. That's what all those little barks are on them. So there's some challenge there. And then the biggest challenge is trying to stop the birds from drinking all the milk. So if you can see in the top right-hand picture, that bird's trying to steal the milk. If mom saw it, she'd of course shoo it away, but she's not. She's looking the other way. So it's pretty fun to watch these newborn pups defend their milk against these birds. The milk at first is thinner, which allows them to hydrate, but as they grow, the milk becomes like almost a mayonnaise consistency. They only nurse for 28 days, and they also only have 28 days with mom. She leaves after that, so these pups are on their own after 28 days. They start off weighing approximately 70 pounds at birth, and they quadruple their weight in 28 days to about 300 pounds. 300-pound elephant seal is about the size of a full-grown harbor seal. So they're just massive animals. So here you can see how crowded the rookery can get at the height of the season. All the arrows are pointing to the pups. There's a bunch more on that beach as well. But you can't always see where one harem starts and one ends, but those bulls know where it does. You can see with this density of seals the importance of the mom being able to vocalize and her pup knowing who she is. The other thing that I'd like to point out here is that there's some seals that are way up in the dunes. And we actually believe that the more experienced mothers will give birth higher up on the beach, away from the water. The less experienced moms may come closer to the water's edge. Now, the reason this is important is because, believe it or not, these guys spend 8 to 10 months of the year at sea, but they're born unable to swim. So if they're by the water's edge and we have a storm surge or a high tide, they can get washed away and they will drown. So that's a tough thing to see. It does happen, unfortunately. A few years back, we had those major king tides that was really, really problematic. The fact that they're born in the winter, when you do have more storms, also makes it a problem. So that's an example of some sneakers trying to come in on that bull's females, and he made it clear that wasn't going to happen. Clearly, he didn't have to do anything other than vocalize. They knew who he was, and they turned away. They didn't go far, though, if you notice. And if he were to get busy doing something else and not paying attention, they'd try sneaking in again. What will also happen is after the females have mated, like in the bottom right-hand corner, you're seeing a male mating. You see that there's a pup still with her. They often go into estrus just before they've weaned their pups, so the pups will be there. But she'll leave the beach right after she's mated, and the sneakers will follow her. And it's not unusual to see a female heading out for her migration with multiple males chasing after her. So, we talked about earlier that the seals need to be not be disturbed because they are fasting when they're on the beach and they need to reserve their energy. Elephant seal males spend the longest time during the birthing and breeding season on the beach, and they can be there for over 3 months. They may come in looking like this guy on the bottom left, weighing about 5,000 pounds, and they might lose a full ton and leave only weighing about 3,000 pounds. So that's pretty hard on the body. So after the males and the females have left, the males will be the last to leave. They were the first to arrive. They will be the last to leave because they're not going to leave if there's any females still left on the beach. But when they finally leave, we have what we call our weaner pods. These are pups that were weaned by their moms after 28 days, and they will be on the beach for another 2 to 2.5 months. Their job is to learn how to swim. And it'll be probably about 10 days before they actually venture out into the water after mom has left. But then they start practicing and they go deeper and deeper each time, and they stay in the water a little bit longer each time. But I've got a video here of what we call our Wiener Swim School, and you can see how adorable it is. You've got to come to the rookery in March to see this. So they practice in the intertidal zone, which is what you saw at the beginning of the video, where there's protection with the rocks from any of the tides at first. And then if they're lucky enough to have a wet winter, they get these ponds. We have a storm drain that drains and makes a beautiful pond for them to practice in. If you notice that some of them were just hanging around with their heads in the water, just practicing having their heads under the water, holding their breath. Others were seeing how their bodies moved in the water. If you notice, there were some that were belly up. Matter of fact, this little guy who has his flipper on the other one, he was belly up almost the whole time we were looking at him. I know it's a he because I got to see his belly. But they are very playful. It's a wonderful time of year to be up at the rookery. We call that a seal pile. So this is the most crowded time of the year at the rookery, the beginning of the molting season. So what is molting? When a seal comes ashore to molt, they're going to lose the whole top layer of skin and all of their fur. If you look at the seals in this picture, the ones that are silvery gray or gray, they've already completed their molt and they're waiting to grow their fur back. The ones that are in the brown, tan, yellow colors still have their fur. And you can see some that have big chunks, they're halfway there. So just like human beings, they have different skin tones and they also have different hair colors. So sometimes people think they're sick. They'll come to the rookery and they'll see this and they'll go, oh, what's wrong with him? Does he have a disease? And so then we have to explain about why the seals have to go through what's called a catastrophic molt. So they come ashore to get the blood flowing back to their extremities, because elephant seals can dive a mile deep and they can stay under for up to 2 hours. Now they're not holding their breath that long. They actually exhale all their air and they get the oxygen that they need from their blood, from hemoglobin and myoglobin. So because of that, their blood is diverted to their main organs. It's diverted away from the extremities, and so there's no blood flow to the skin. So like humans, we lose a little hair, a little skin every day. They can't do that. So they have to come ashore and do what's called a catastrophic molt all at one time. So 2 seasons of the year that they're on the beach, one, for the adults at least, is the birthing and breeding, and the second one is for the molting. For the juveniles, They come for the molt, which is this time of year. These are the females in the spring and all of the juvenile seals. And they also come for the fall haul out that we'll see a little bit later. So you can see big chunks coming off right there. And if you find me later after the presentation, I have some molt if you'd like to feel it. Okay, so the molting season continues into the summer. So the females and the juveniles will start to leave the beaches, and the subadult males by June will start to arrive. And this is probably August, where we have our older males, the bulls. And you can see they're in all different stages of molt here. They definitely don't look the prettiest, but you would never see these guys cuddling up to each other during the birthing and breeding season. But this time of year, there's no females to fight over. So they might get a little cranky with each other, but other than that, they get cranky and then they lay their heads down and go back to sleep. So the guy on the bottom left is an adult male. You can see by the length of the proboscis, the notch. They often start to molt from around the nose area and the eyes, and so he's just probably only been on the beach a couple days. They will be on the beach for a month, and once again, they are fasting. All seals are fasting when they're on the beach, except for the pups when they're nursing those 28 days. The seal on the right is a much younger, probably still a juvenile, maybe a subadult. It's really hard to see his nose and whether he's starting to get a proboscis or not. But he's, remember I told you earlier, you'll see a seal flipping sand. Look at his flipper. He's got it cupped. He's got that good amount of sand coming up over the top of him, and you can see his fingernails. I'm just fascinated with their fingernails. So why do they flip sand? Well, we talked a little bit ago about the fact that they can dive a mile deep. It's cold a mile deep. And so they have a very thick layer of blubber, the blubber that they were hunted for, right? And that blubber serves them well when they're in the deep ocean. It keeps them warm. But when they come ashore, it's like having a very heavy blanket. And so they use the sand to cool themselves off and to protect themselves from the sun. See the big chunks of molt? So again, it's not the birthing and breeding season. There's no females on the beach. There's no reason for any of these guys to worry about him being his bravado. But it just was fun. He wanted to do a little vocalizing and show everybody how tough he was. If you notice on the right, there's a younger seal on the beach. So remember we talked earlier about the fact that there's these seasons that we think when they're supposed to be here, but this young male obviously came a lot later than what most of his peers would have done. And here he is with the big guys, and nobody cares. He's fine. He has completed his molt. He'll probably be leaving soon, whereas the other guys will be on the beach for a little bit longer. So another way that they can cool themselves off is they go down to the water's edge. And it's something that happens year-round with all seals. It doesn't matter the gender or the age. When the sun gets high in the sky, they start to get hot and they move down. It's like a mass exodus. And it's like clockwork. You can see it every day. But the first they get down there, they get that nice spot near the water. The guys that are late to the party are not going to go around. You saw how much work it is for these seals to walk on land. So they just go over the top. They climb right over the others. And you can see this guy kind of in the middle of the screen there, attempting to get over, and two in front of him, giving him a little bit of attitude. The reality is he'll get over, they'll all lay down and go back about their business. So in addition to March with the weaners in the swim school, this is my next favorite time of year. It's all juvenile seals during the fall haul out. So they are there for no particular reason other than the fact that all seals come to the beach twice a year, and this is their second trip to the beach. So the sparring that you're seeing is only male seals. Females don't do that behavior. So whether they have grown their proboscis or not, which most of these are not even starting, although there's a few you can see the beginnings of it, you can tell that they are males if they are doing that chest bumping, sparring behavior. They are so much fun to watch. They're just like a bunch of teenage boys. They are not hurting each other, whereas the battles during the birthing and breeding can get bloody and ugly. There's nothing sad happening here. It's just a really fun time of year. The practice is important. They are fasting, so technically they should be reserving their energy, but they also do need that practice. And as they grow year after year before they get to that adult stage, they learn skills that will serve them well when they're trying to get that alpha status. But still, you will see most of the time they will be just resting again because of that fasting. A couple guys in the corner there, though, they're not going to give up yet. So as you can see here, whether they're resting or whether they're playing, they are just so cute. There's just something about these juveniles that you can't, I'm taking pictures and I don't know when to stop because they are just that adorable. So how do we know all this information about elephant seals? They spend 8 to 10 months of the year in the water, and when they're in the water, they dive super deep. And not only do they dive super deep, but they stay under up to 2 hours, but mostly usually 20-minute dives. But when they come to the surface, they're only on the surface for about 2 minutes. So it's really hard to learn anything about what their life is like in the ocean until technology improved. And we've worked with UC Santa Cruz as well as more locally with our rookery, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And for years, the UC Santa Cruz researchers have used different tracking devices that needed to be retrieved to get the data off of. So we have citizen scientists, in this case, these are all 3 Friends of the Elephant Seal docents, that help by using radio frequencies to find these seals if they show up in a rookery where they didn't originate from. So the UC Santa Cruz researchers are working out of Año Nuevo, which is north of Santa Cruz, and their seals sometimes show up at Piedra Blancas. And when they do, we track them down for the researchers, let them know where they are, and they will then come down and retrieve the recorders and the data. Those are glued onto them. They're non-invasive, so that's the good news, and we've gotten a lot of really good information from them. More recently, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to move off to the side here. If you want to take a picture of the screen, the Cal Poly VIP lab is currently tracking 10 weaners from this year's group, so that were born in January or probably. They left the beach in April, and they're live, they're satellite streaming. So you can go to that website and you can actually see where they are at that moment. We have one, her name is Monarch, who has made it 2,000 miles already up to the Gulf of Alaska. And that's pretty remarkable. We never thought that the weaners, their first migration, went that far, but that is where the adults migrate. And she actually followed the trajectory more of what a male elephant seal does. So we keep learning new things about the seals, and things that we thought we knew sometimes isn't what we should have known. It's different. We also use flipper tags. They are color-coded. So these white tags are from our rookery, from Piedra Blancas. If they were from Año Nuevo, they would be green tags. And if they were rehabilitated by some of our friends up here and released, they would have orange tags. And so we always do the happy dance when we see an orange tagged seal, because we know that they were rehabilitated and that they are thriving. We can track year after year after year. Most seals, when they migrate, come back to the rookery where they were born, but not always. Like we talked about those radioed seals. We found some Año Nuevo seals in our rookery, and they find our seals up there. And so we communicate with each other, and that way we can track the seals. That's how we know how old they're getting to be, and lots of other just different data that we collect just by observing. Also, seals will sometimes have a hair dye, which is much easier to see on the beach. So if you're walking by and you see a seal with G745 on it, you can't miss it. And so we then research where that seal is from. They oftentimes will also have flipper tags, but not always. This particular seal has some tracking devices as well. But sometimes it's just going to be the dye, and that's because the researchers are just looking at what is happening in that season on the beach while they're there. And so that's all they need, because they will molt that off when molting season comes. So because of all this data, we now have a pretty good idea of where seals go, although, again, they kind of do their own thing a little bit. The males, for the most part, follow the continental shelf, and the females go more into the open ocean. But as you can see, we've got overlap, and again, the red is the males, yellow is the females. And something new that we've learned recently is that the males are not doing a lot of foraging on their migration. So we talked earlier about the males being on the beach for 3+ months without eating. What we're now learning is that not only are they not eating for that 3+ months, but they're not eating on their migration down, and they're also not eating on their migration back up. So that could be up to 6 months of no food, living off their blubber. So that skinny guy that we saw, he gets even skinnier before he starts to feed again. So this is some data that we got from a dive recorder, and this was a female elephant seal. You can see that the squiggly lines at the bottom of some of those dives, that's indicative of foraging behavior. And then that longer, hour-long dive in the middle there probably was a drifting, sleeping dive. Again, some new data that we've learned is that elephant seals probably only sleep about 2 hours a day when they're at sea. So 8 to 10 months out of the year, they get 2 hours a day of sleep. Whereas when they're on the beach, they may sleep 12 to 14 hours. So I guess they catch up when they're on the beach. If you notice also at the top, when they're coming to the surface, about 2 minutes. They come up to the top to reoxygenate their blood, and then back down they go. Typical dive being about 20 minutes. So because they tend to migrate in different areas, they eat different things. We used to think that the females ate a lot of squid because the squid beaks were found in necropsies of them. But the truth is, what we've learned recently is that they mostly eat those little tiny lanternfish, and they're eating thousands and thousands a day in order to keep their mass. The males, on the other hand, are eating larger food sources, and they're also opportunistic feeders. So if something comes their way, they're going to eat it. But they will even eat some small sharks sometimes. Their goal is to get as big as they can get because they want to be able to have some alpha, the possibility of alpha status. Who are their predators? The apex hunters of the sea, right? The orcas, of course, who hunt in packs. The elephant seals do not have a really good chance against an orca pack. But interestingly enough, we do see seals on the beach that have survived a shark bite. So that probably mostly depends on the size of the shark, if this was a juvenile shark or a full-grown shark, and also the size of the seal. But this little guy, this is a juvenile. It might have even been a yearling. Based on its ratty coat, it could have been a yearling. And it survived. You know, you can see that, we see that frequently. And again, another happy dance opportunity when we see that they've survived. And then there's the human threat. So entanglements are a problem, and we do see these, unfortunately. This female probably had that around her neck when she was smaller, and as she's grown, it's gotten tighter and tighter. It will eventually kill her if we cannot get it off. Some of the marine mammal rescues are able to help out with that, but it depends. If the seal is in the rookery, they have to get permission from NOAA to go down into the rookery. If the seal lands on another beach, that's much easier because you can go down and do it. Sad. It's a tough one. So we need to do better, right? As human beings, we just need to do a better job of making sure that debris is not ending up in the oceans and that we are protecting all animals that are living in the ocean. So that's just a general overview. There is just so much more we could talk about with elephant seals. But if you'd like to learn more information, go to our website at elephantseal.org. We do have live cameras on both our north and south beach, which is kind of fun to watch different times of the year, what's going on. And there's also links to our YouTube channel. There's a ton of videos, like some of the stuff you saw here on the YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page and our Instagram. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. We're going to take questions now. So if you have questions, raise your hand. I think we've got some volunteers going up and down with microphones. And I will try to answer. No.
Go to the expert here. Okay.
There you go.
You said the females arrive on the beach pregnant.
Right.
Were they inseminated on the beach and then they came back?
Yes. So that's
not at sea.
correct.
But it's beach to
beach. So I'm glad you asked that question because it's really kind of an important thing that I didn't cover about the elephant seals. So they come pregnant, they give birth, they nurse for 28 days, they mate, they leave pregnant, but it's a delayed implantation. So the elephant seal, the embryo is not implanted in the uterus because the female has now been on the beach for a month. She's been fasting, she's been nursing, she's lost probably a third of her body weight, and she doesn't have the stores to grow a healthy fetus at that point. So she goes out on their short migration, about 2 months, she feeds, comes back for the molt, and at that point, the hormones in her body change and allow that embryo to be implanted in the uterus. She's now healthy enough to support that. So it's a pretty cool adaptation that they have. So then it also helps them regulate when they give birth so that they're all giving birth at the same time during that birthing and breeding season. So there's, at that point, about an 8-month gestation. I think we have a question over here. I can't see.
I've got one up here.
Okay, go ahead.
Does a female ever have more than one pup?
No. A female, because they are fasting, they cannot support more than one pup. They have enough milk for one, and that's it. Unfortunately, we sometimes see pups who've been separated from their moms, and a female will take them in, and more than one will be nursing, and most likely neither will survive. There's just not enough milk to support more than one pup.
Hi. When a shark attacks, are they just lucky that they swam away faster than the shark could swim, or do they fight off the shark?
We don't know for sure. They're out in the ocean, and again, we don't have a lot of really good data of that. I do know that the bigger bulls for sure will fight back. But the younger seals may just get really lucky, just able to get loose and swam away. They can dive deeper than their predators. So that's a huge adaptation that helps them to survive. Mile deep, whereas the sharks can go about 2,000 feet. So, and the orca's only, I think, about 800 feet. So that may be part of what they're doing to get away.
And when the seals were hunted, how did they make oil from the blubber, and how much oil might have come from a bull's seal?
A lot. I don't know all of the details of that. I know that it was melted down. I do not know how much, but it's a lot. I mean, you've got 5,000 pounds of seal that is, heavily blubber.
Hi.
Okay. Where are we?
On this
Sorry.
side. Other
Okay.
side.
Oh, hi.
I'm wondering how social elephant seals are, aside from mating and fighting, which you told us about. Do they continue to spend time with their harem, for instance, or have family units or friends?
They actually do not. It's pretty remarkable because they spend so much time at sea, you know, and they are migrating individually. They don't go in groups. So on land, they're so communal, right? They look like they're buddies, and they do enjoy that time together on land, but they do not, there is no family. For instance, every once in a while, it's very possible that a wiener might still be on the beach when the mom comes back from her migration. They do not seek each other out. They, you know, mom leaves, those pups are on their own. They have to learn to swim, and then they have to learn to they have to migrate on their own. It's as if they have a built-in GPS system. They know where to go, they know where to come back. But they don't seek each other out in that way as if there's a family.
So for the weaning pups, you show them learning how to swim on their own. What are they eating during that time?
They are fasting. That's a good question, so I didn't cover that. They are fasting like all other seals on the beach, and it's actually, so you saw how big and round they were, about maybe 300 pounds at that point. That helps them when they first enter the water because they're really buoyant, and so they can practice, but as they're practicing, they're losing weight. And so they can then dive a little bit more, and they need to lose some of that weight before they do their migration so that they are able to dive and forage. So they are not, like all seals, other than when they're nursing, they are fasting when they're on the beach.
I'm curious about going about attaching devices to them or dialing the numbers on them or helping them in any way. Do they accept people coming up to them, or that seems like something you want to do with great care?
It is done with great care. So it's we the docents, we're not doing that. Those are the researchers through both Cal Poly and San Luis Obispo and UC Santa Cruz. It's done with great care. For the most part, elephant seals are not aggressive with the researchers, but they do know how to handle them carefully. The big bulls, it's pretty funny to watch some of these big bulls get those stamps of the dye. Half the time they sleep through it. The flipper tags, they're like, it's almost like an ear piercing, and maybe even less, because we've had weaners definitely sleep through getting tagged. So yes, you're correct. Great care is taken so as not to disturb more than necessary, and learning about them. There's always that pros and cons between the research and not. The more we learn, the more we appreciate them, the more we can share with people, the more likely people will take care of them. So it's that payoff.
I want to thank you for, come up here.
Oh.
Over here.
Oh, okay.
What an absolutely phenomenal presentation that you had this evening. With the escalation in Hiroshima, when they had the nuclear leak, they've recently allowed the water to be expelled that has the nuclear material in it. And a friend of mine, Jenny, told me that they're showing radiation in the water heading towards California. I'm concerned about that, the effect on the elephant seals, as well as the amount of pollution in the ocean from the plastics. Because since COVID, the pollution of the plastics and different things is escalated off the chart. So what's the risk to the elephant seals on these two matters? Anything being done about it, and what can be done? Or can you let somebody know that they're at risk as well as all of the animals in the sea?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, you have a point. All of the animals in the sea are at risk, and elephant seals, like any other marine mammal in particular, are going to have similar concerns. We need to do better as human beings. As a planet, we need to be taking more care of debris and what we're doing to our environment. So it goes back to climate change and everything else.
If you don't mind, the radiation that's in the water in the ocean, are you tracking it? Because this is a fact. They're showing that it's coming towards us. Is there any way that you maybe, not you per se,
Right.
but will they look into that?
I'm not sure if the researchers are doing any tracking of that at this point. They may be. We haven't been given any information about that at this point, but it could be coming.
Hi. So given the numbers that you gave early in the presentation about estimated 30 elephant seals surviving the, I don't want to say whaling period, but
Yeah,
the seal
yeah.
equivalent of that.
The hunting, yes.
Are there present day concerns about not having enough genetic diversity to survive a plague?
Right.
Or something like a COVID happening to the seals?
There's been a lot of talk about, the bottlenecking and the fact that there is not a lot of genetic diversity. Our seals are thriving, so far we're not seeing a problem with that. But could something be problematic in the future? I mean, it's been, 150 years or so, a little less than that. But, and they're thriving, they're doing really well. So at this point, up to this point, there hasn't been a problem with that. But that is a good point.
Hello, and thank you very much for your time and attention today. I was kind of wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on the domoic acid situation. Thank you.
The elephant seals don't seem to be as susceptible to the domoic acid poisoning as definitely the sea lions and harbor seals and certainly some dolphins recently. So we just know that we see at our rookery sea lions coming ashore and pretty sick. You can tell they do a little bit of weaving, sometimes having seizures and such. We do what we can. We do know that if they're caught early enough, they can be helped. But it's usually by the time you see them, it's not a good thing. Beyond that, I don't really have a lot of information about the domoic acid poisoning. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
So I had a question about the location of your rookery. Is that just happened to be where they've traveled for centuries and then they've just collected there and that's why you kind of established in that area?
Good question. So this is going to be our last question, but I'll be around to answer questions afterwards if you'd like. So the rookeries, as the seal population started to grow again, there were many rookeries on the Channel Islands that got very overcrowded. So our thought is that these seals were looking for another place to land, a place that they could haul out. And this section of Central Coast property was a really safe place for them. There were no land predators. We no longer had bears that would be able to hunt them. And it was a nice cove, as you saw, that little bay. It was protected by a nice kelp bed out there, which helps with the pups when they're first learning to swim as well. Keeps the sharks out, even though the sharks can go through the kelp. They tend to choose not to. And so it was a nice wide beach. Again, they need that wide beach because the pups can't swim. So it just seems like it was a good place for them to land. Not too many people would stop there. That used to be drive-by land. You go to Hearst Castle and then you drive through the Big Sur coastline. Now lots of people stop, 1 million people a year, which is pretty cool. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Max. What a wonderful talk, and I hope everybody learned something. I know I learned a lot of new things about elephant seals tonight. To continue your learning, approach Max or maybe some of our staff from those organizations I mentioned in the introduction who are helping respond to the domoic acid during our cocktail reception. So you're invited now to exit on this main floor, same way that you entered, and enter into our Paint a Fish gallery. There are some crafts available as well as cocktails for sale, but we'd love you to come back again. So in September, we will be talking about artificial intelligence and its capabilities in helping with some of these issues. in the ocean, including plastics, like one of our guests here tonight was asking about. So Dr. Ben Strong, who's with Earth Genome, will be presenting on September 6th. So come inside our Honda Pacific Visions Theater, recover from your Labor Day sunburn, and learn about artificial intelligence. Thank you all for coming tonight and for joining us online, and tell your friends about First Wednesdays. Have a great night.